Welcome, my name is Sarah Alice, and in this session I'm going to be taking us through a Yin session that is all about getting upside down and inverting. Now, this practice is dedicated to turning the perspective that we have on our lives and looking at it from a different view. And the main intention behind this practice today is to just be okay with doing less. We are always in this constant rush to get from A to B, looking to make progression, looking to tick off things on our to-do list. And the ability just to be still and just be, not in that doing state, can be really, really challenging. So this practice is really going to hone in on that intention, giving yourself permission so that you can just be. And we're going to get started in a beautiful pose called waterfall, also known as legs up the wall. So it depends on where you're practicing this today. If you are on a mat like myself, you can use a bolster prop or block to place underneath the sit bones, or if you're doing it where you have a wall available, you might just lie on your back and take your legs up the wall. So we're going to come down and lie on our backs. Now, to come into this pose, I'm going to take a bend in the knees, ground down through the feet, and on the inhalation, start to lift the tailbone away so that you can place your prop underneath the sacrum. I'm choosing today to use this block. If my lower back was feeling a little bit sore, then I'd definitely go for a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you can use a rolled up blanket or even a pillow, anything that's going to essentially cushion and elevate the pelvis. I'm then going to extend the legs up towards the ceiling. And even though this may look like it takes a bit of effort, once you kind of find that balancing point, it's actually very relaxing. And this pose is absolutely fantastic for allowing any energy that's stagnating in the legs just to filter down. And it also allows the blood to pool around the belly area. And just when we are digesting, say, for example, a large meal, and the blood all comes into the belly to help with that, and you get that kind of tired feeling, it's the same thing. It's a really lovely way to help the body relax. And in this practice of Yin Yoga, we are always looking to come into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. So the opposite from any adrenal activity when we're rushing around. And then to help us come into the parasympathetic nervous system now, we can just allow the breath to be nice and long, maybe out via the mouth. And then inhaling via the nose, and you can soften the eyes down here. You might just take your gaze to the tip of the nose. You might close your eyes down entirely, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And this practice of Yin is one of interoception. So what I mean by that is it is an opportunity for us to disconnect from everything that's happening in the world outside so that we can reconnect to ourselves on a deeper level. We can tune into our internal landscape. And we can take this pause as an opportunity to start to feel into the sensations of the body. To start to notice if the mind is really chattering, busy with thoughts. Noticing how our mental clarity is, how our emotional self is, because all of these things come onto the mat with us. They'll become part of our practice, and they make us who we are. We're not just a body, we're not just our thoughts. It is everything working together. And this practice is a really lovely way for us to reconnect to the language of the body and that internal wisdom. And so just for this next minute, I'm not going to talk. I just want you to enjoy feeling that different gravitational flow of energy. I'm just coming to the last few final breaths of this asana. And this pose is one that I love to use either at the beginning. It's also really nice to use at the end of the class. You can take it instead of Shavasana. And legs at the wall especially is definitely the most nurturing position that I bring my students into in a class situation. It just does the body so many wonders. It's such a beautiful, energetic gift to yourself. And so to exit out, just going to slowly bring one leg down and then the other. Once the feet are grounded, press down through the feet, inhale, remove the block. And we'll take our rebound, and that might just be staying in constructive rest here. You might choose to bring the knees in towards the armpits, little rock from side to massage out through the sacrum. And you might even just take a few circles of the toes, lubricating into the ankle joints. And then from here, just taking a roll off to the side. Doesn't really matter if it's left or right. And then coming into an upright position. And just before we come on to the next pose, if you did that pose without any music on, it's really interesting to see how you feel about that silence. Some people love to have the quiet. In a yin practice, I do quite like to have some very soft or classical music on in the background, not to distract me, but just to sort of help me come into that space. So yeah, please feel free to put on some music if you need. We're going to come into our next pose now, which is child's pose. And we're going to bring the big toes together and bring the knees to the earth. The knees come slightly wider than hip distance apart. Now you are very welcome to bring props in here. You can bring in the bolster, but really what we're looking to do is to have the heart slightly higher than the head. So that it is an inversion. An inversion in Yin Yoga is essentially that meaning. It is that the heart is higher than the head. This allows a different gravitational pull on the body. It helps with Venus return. Some are more subtle than others, so this one will be much more subtle than the previous pose, but it's still very effective of changing the way in which energy flows around the body. So, if you can, keep the sit bones grounded, and we're going to hinge forward here. Now, by all means, if that feels really, really tight on the lumbar spine, do bring a prop in. For example, you can bring a bolster or a block in underneath. But, like I said, if you can, come all the way down so that the head touches the earth. And we're going to settle in here, just allowing the sit bones to be heavy. And this ability just to do, I'm not saying nothing, because obviously we're in poses, but this act of not doing, it's almost taking that sense of surrender, because if we're in that yang element all the time, where we are busy, sometimes it feels like we are forcing things, forcing situations. And in this practice of letting go, I want you to think of yourself as water. Now water, if it is running in a stream, in a river, and there is a rock there, the water will take the path of least resistance. It will go around the rock. If you drop water into a container, it will take the shape of that container. And that's not to say that water is not powerful, because it is. Because in that stream, for example, when that water goes around those rocks, after a period of time, that water will have an influence on the shape of the rock with erosion. So even though it's taken the path of least resistance, it still has power there.
And that can be a really valuable lesson, that sometimes things take time and that we don't have to force things, and it's okay to soften. So allow yourself to melt into this pose. Maybe noticing the sensations that are most prevalent. It might be the ankles or the knees, it might be the shoulders. And that little pressure on the forehead, stimulating into the pituitary gland. And so when you are ready to exit, just easing the hands back towards the shoulders. Gently easing up through the spine. And again, just taking a few moments of your rebound here. Having been compressed in the knees, you might choose just to extend one leg behind you to stretch out that hamstring, that knee joint. And then the other. And then taking as much time as you need in between the poses. And so the next pose that we are going to come into is called snail pose. It is an inversion. It's where the legs go above the head. If you have any issues in your neck whatsoever, I would just say please avoid this pose. Just skip the video until the next pose. I'm going to give you a few variations so you can have a little play and see what's best for you. So for snail pose, we're going to come onto a supine position. I'm going to do a little rock to get into the pose. And I'm going to have my bolster handy. So I'll show you how you can utilize the bolster. So we're going to rock back and take the toes over to the back of the mat. And you might interlace the hands here like so. So as you can see, my heart is now higher than my head. Some people like to bend the knees here. If you have long femur bones, it might be that the weight can go completely into the shins. Otherwise, you can just dangle the knees. It's perfectly acceptable to have the hands come to the lower back for support as well. If that feels too strong, it can be really nice to bring the bolster in here and then just allow that bolster to support the spine. And this is where I tend to be. It brings that yin energy much more into play. And one thing I would say, that if you feel a little pressure on the vertebra or the upper spine, then do bring blankets and place them underneath the shoulders. And this allows a really lovely curvature of the spine, so a lovely flexion, and compressing into the hip joints. There's a compression into the belly, so we're stimulating into the front lines of the body in terms of meridians, working with the stomach and the spleen here. And again, it's just changing that gravitational flow of energy. My internal organs are now placed very differently from when I'm standing, when I'm upright. And that just allows oxygenated blood to penetrate into the fascia in between the organs, helps with lymphatic drainage, juices up the fascia. And on reverted as well, it helps with the exhale. Again, helping us to really come into that rest and digest. If you have any niggles in the lower back here, do listen to the body. You can come out whenever you need to. And one interesting thing that I find about this pose and fascinating about the body is that we talk about our senses, touch, taste, sound, and
a sense, we have so many subtle senses that we don't talk about. Proprioception is one of them, but we have baroreceptors within our arteries, which are fascinating because they actually detect the pressure in which the blood is flowing through the arteries. Now, if that pressure is too much, it will then tell the brain that that the heart is working too hard, and will then result in the heartbeat slowing down, which of course results in us becoming more relaxed. And what happens in this pose is that the carotid artery here does exactly that. It picks up, there's a lot of pressure because I'm inverted. And so theoretically, the heart rate slows and it induces the body into a state of relaxation. All right, my loves, we're going to very gently start to exit out. You might actually take the bolster up before you bring the feet down. And also when you come down, do roll down really gently. And again, you might just pause here in constructive rest. Or having done that flexion of the spine, it might feel really nice just to take a slight extension here, just to open up into those hip flexors. But again, just do whatever feels right in your body for your rebound. And that's the beautiful thing about this practice, is tuning in to that language, because the body will tell you what your alternating position should be. And then we're going to sit on up. I'm just taking a few moments here. You might even detect that flow of blood coming back down towards the lower part of the body. And then we'll set up for caterpillar. And so for caterpillar, we are going to extend the legs long. I'm going to walk the sit bones back, so you have a slight anterior tilt of the tailbone. Now, with caterpillar, it's quite interesting. It will really depend on the position of the pelvis. Some people have an anterior tilt to the pelvis, some people a posterior tilt. You will know if you have a posterior tilt in your pelvis if you try to come forward and you feel it more in the lower back rather than the hamstrings. It may mean that you have that tilt, in which case you can roll some blankets up, or you can take a thinner block and place it underneath the sit bones, and this will just help to elevate the pelvis and help you hinge forward. And then if you are a little tight in the hamstrings, which a lot of us are, you're very welcome to bring a bolster in like so to rest the head onto. It might be that you take the bolster over the legs and you fold this way. And you're also really welcome to take a bolster or rolled up blankets underneath the knees and then come into it this way. And then blocks can be really handy too. Essentially, when it comes to using props and finding a comfortable position, just prop yourself up as much as you like. You can bring pillows under the rib cage here. Use anything that you like. You can get really, really creative with it. And when I say make yourself comfortable, of course, what I mean is that place where you're not in pain, because we're never in pain in Yin Yoga, but you are in sensation. So when you come into this pose, you do want to feel that stressing of the tissues, which will lead to the stretch of the connective tissues, which is where the meridians reside. And so we come and find our edge, or if the word edge doesn't resonate for you, you might say coming into sensation where you are no longer in your comfort zone, but you're not in pain either. It's that place in between. And with the feet here, I know that in a vinyasa practice we'll talk about having the toes pointing up towards the ceiling, but because in Yin Yoga we do not want to activate the muscles, that's what the props are there, to prop us up so the muscles can just relax. So allow the feet to roll in any direction they want. And then once you've come into your desired area of sensation, then we come into the second principle of Yin Yoga, which is to find stillness. And for those of you who've practiced with me in person would have heard me say this many times, this is very fluid for me, because especially in this pose, once you've been in for a few minutes, the body will really start to soften. And the reason for that is because when you first come into sensation, the body has a really amazing mechanism where it will engage the muscles to ensure that we don't overstretch, we don't snap anything, and the body is safe. And when the body understands that it's not in danger, those muscles will start to relax. And that's when we start to really surrender, marinate in the pose. And so it might mean that actually after a minute, after 2 minutes, you might be able to go a little bit deeper. And just to say that I am fairly open in my hamstring, and so if you're doing this at home and your body is about here, perfect. It doesn't matter, because you'll be feeling the same level of sensation through the hamstrings as me. And that's when this gauge that I use is quite important. If 0 is feeling nothing and 10 is feeling pain, you want to be at about 6, a 7, or an 8. Now, it might be that I need to come all the way down here to get that sensation of an 8, and you might find it there. So that's why this practice is so personal. It's another great thing that if you're in a class situation, you can close your eyes, because it doesn't matter what your neighbor is doing. We are all unique in our body, so what I experience in my body will be different from what you experience in your body. And this all comes back to this beautiful reconnection to what our body is telling us, because at the end of the day, you are the best teacher, because only you can experience those sensations in your body. Only you understand where your boundaries are, what you need to explore. I'm going to stay here for 1 more minute. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to give you that space to just be here and connect to the breath. Connect to the sensations and just be okay with being in sensation. That can be a really challenging thing, as can being in stillness. So just being kind to yourself here and just really staying present if you can. Taking the last few breaths here now. And then slowly unraveling, and we can take up to a minute to exit out of a yin pose, because it can be quite confronting for the joints. The joints can feel a little bit vulnerable, and you might choose to come into stillness here for your rebound. You might choose to paddle up the legs. I'm actually going to take a downward facing dog, because that's a really nice way to rebound. You don't have to rebound this way. It's essentially just taking any movement that's going to feel I'm going to use the word delicious in the body, or stillness, so that we can acknowledge that shift of energy, that feeling of chi in the body. Nice. And for this next pose, you will need a bolster or a pillow or some cushions, a rolled up blanket as we come into supported fish pose. So I'm going to come onto my sit bones here, and taking your prop behind you, and I'm going to take the prop to the base of my spine here and entering down. Now, you don't have to come into this hip opening. You can just keep the feet grounded. You can even have the legs long if you wish. I am going to take butterfly with the legs because that's feeling quite nice in my body. But what I would say is that if you are feeling too much of an arc in the lumbar spine, you're very welcome to prop up. And this one's a little bit high. I say you could just use a thinner block, or a blanket. You can get creative. As I said, you can prop up the sit bones to decrease that angle. And we're opening up through the chest, hands coming down by the sides of the body, and you may have the palms facing up. That lovely sense of openness to receive energy. You might have the palms facing down for that sense of grounding. And whereas in snail pose we compress into the front lines of the body, in this positioning we are opening up and expanding into them. And really opening up into the heart space, and that stimulation into the heart meridians there, potentially with the external rotation of the shoulders. And a lot of what we're doing in this practice today has been allowing the heart to be higher than the head, to bring the focus back to the heart. Just to remind us that, sometimes the heart knows best. I think most of the time the heart knows best, but so often we try and force things in opposite directions. And again, it's just that reminder just to come back to our own sense of self, our own sense of intuition. And just allowing ourselves just to be. And sometimes you need these moments of stillness to listen to what the heart is telling you. So again, I'm going to give you some time now here where I am not talking, so that you can tune into your language of your body. You can tune into your heart. Staying here for another 5 or 6 rounds of breath.
And starting to ease some movement back into the body. To exit, it might be that you roll off to one side, or you might take the forearms down to the earth, gently sitting up. Having done extension of the spine, you then might choose to come into flexion. Just taking your rebound. And you can stay here for as long as you like. Always feel free to pause the video if you need longer in between poses. Our next asana is called supported bridge pose, one of my favorites. Now for supported bridge pose, props that you can use, either block or bolster. Same as with the waterfall pose in the beginning. Bolstering can feel a little softer. If you want a bit more support, block. You can come to lie down on our backs. And coming in the same way as we did with waterfall, you press down through the feet, lift the pelvis up. I'm going to take the block in at about its middle orientation. Now there's nothing to say that you can't take it down on its lowest orientation. Some people even like to come up onto its highest orientation. So this is quite a powerful opening through the front of the pelvis. And this one really does help with allowing the heart to be higher than the head. So you can have a little play of where you need to go. And if you have quite a strong curve in the lumbar spine, we call this a lordosis or hypermobile in the lower back, it may be that you take the prop closer towards the tailbone so that you're not in hyperextension there. You see how I've done that, and actually my spine is actually fairly long, but I'm still getting that lovely opening through the front of the body. Hands come down by the sides of the body. And you may even choose to take the hands over the top of the head. So this feels actually really lovely to open up into the front lines of the body. And just coming back to that intention of just being, not doing. Just be here and feel the sensations of the body. Now some poses, the edge, that first principle of yin, might be very, very obvious. Others are more subtle. I definitely say this is a more subtle one for me. And it's not to say that because I'm not feeling a strong sense of sensation as a stretch necessarily, that you're not working the body in the same way. We are still stimulating the meridians of the body. We're still changing the way energy, chi flows around the body. With that intention of that if there are any blockages within our meridians, that chi will come through and help to unblock so that the body can come back into equilibrium. And that blockage, it might be a physical blockage, it might be an energetic, an emotional blockage, because in traditional Chinese medicine, in which this practice is inspired by, yes, we may have ailments that come down to our organs not functioning in the way that they need to, but we also hold on to emotions in our organs. And when we're working with the meridians, it's not that we're looking to find anything or diagnose anything or analyze anything. And the body will just tell you the poses that you need, and it's a very subtle thing that happens, and you don't need to analyze it. And again, that comes back to that just be. We don't need to catalogue it, we don't need to do anything, we just need to just trust the process. And of course, the third principle of Yin Yoga is to stay a while.
This is a really lovely way to lengthen out the spine. And even though this one may not be strong sensationally, stretch-wise, like I said, it might be, I know for me that I really notice the energy around the pelvis. It can feel really balancing and really grounding. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, this can be a really lovely position to utilize. And take a few more rounds of breath here. Really feeling how that reverse gravity helps the lungs press the air out. Helps that venous return of blood to the heart. Nice. And then to exit, just gently pressing into the feet, lifting up through the sacrum, removing your prop, and then gently rolling down through the spine, bone by bone by bone. And for me, it feels really natural to then draw the knees into the chest. Maybe just take a few little pulses here just to feel that stretch coming into the erector spinae muscles that cushion the spine and the quadratus lumborum muscles. I might take a little rock from side to side to massage into the sacrum. And then we'll come into a upright position. And again, you might pause here for your rebound. You might stay grounded on the supine position, just taking what you need. Okay, we're going to come into one final pose for this practice. And we are going to be, again, upside down. We're going to come into a wide-legged straddle. Not too wide, a little bit wider than forward fold. And from here, you want to use a prop where you can maybe take the forearms down. You may take a bolster there, but essentially you may even take the head onto the block. It really does depend on your flexibility. I'm going to stay here. We're not going to be here for too long. But it is a beautiful way of, again, just allowing that total change of perspective here. I'm looking at the world from upside down. And sometimes that can be a really insightful thing. I can feel the blood filtering down to my head. So it's a really lovely way to cleanse out the sinuses. However, please be aware that, if you are congested, then don't stay here. Don't suffer through that. Come on out. And it is said that in Hatha Yoga, this part of the brain here holds on to a life force fluid of vitality. And this just really allows that fluid to flow freely. And from a more Western medicine point of view, this part of the brain here is usually compressed by the rest of it. But again, we've changed in the way in which the brain sits within the skull. And by releasing that pressure, that actually stimulates that part of the brain and has an effect on the synovial fluid. Now, synovial fluid within the joints is... if we're sedentary, it's more like a jelly state, and we have the ability to change the state of our synovial fluid. So this actually allows it to become more fluid-like, and that does that by drawing in water into the synovial fluid, and so it becomes more viscose, which basically means that you've got more range of motion, which helps with our flexibility, which is why, when we're warm or when we're moving, we do feel that more open sense of and bigger sense of range of motion. So getting upside down can be really great for the joints. Nice. Now you are more than welcome to stay here for a little bit longer. I sometimes stay here for up to 5 minutes. But I'm going to gently start to come on out. Now it might be that you bring the knees down to the floor and take child's pose. You can roll up gently into standing, which can feel really nice. Or even if you come into front bot pose here, you can feel that blood filter back down, maybe coming back into the fingers, and you could say that is the oxygenated blood, like I just said, coming back into the hands, or you might detect that as prana, as chi, as energy. So however you want to approach this practice, it doesn't matter. It's, again, just connecting to that sense of sensation and flow of energy through the body. So we are going to complete the practice here. You are very welcome to come down into Shavasana. Everyone feels different having been upside down. You might be feeling really relaxed, you might be feeling energized. So do choose an option that feels best for you. I'm going to come into Sukhasana, and I'm going to take this time just to feel that sense of gratitude to having had this space on the mat, to come into that sense of non-doing. I hope that you feel a sense of gratitude to yourself for carving out this time in your busy schedule to prioritize self-care. I know it can be really challenging, so lots of love for yourself and for this amazing body of yours and all the ways in which it supports you. And I hope that you feel all the benefits of this practice, and I look forward to seeing you again on the mat soon. Lots of love.